Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. Your questions and comments are welcome. Send them to DJ@ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Z-Man. And tonight we're having a special edition, the Barry White Show. We got our sexy voice on tonight because we've been sick.
I'm just glad to have voices.
That's right, glad to have voices. And happy Hanukkah, Easter, no, not Hanukkah, Passover, Easter, and any other holiday that you happen to be celebrating. And tonight's topic is blood. That was terrible. Tonight's topic is blood.
Okay.
and that was a bloody intro, but
it'll do.
It'll do. But in truth, we decided that we would talk about blood because it's one of those things that people have a lot of different connotations for.
True.
And I know you were reading a little bit up about the kind of the origins of the word and how far back it goes into. Well, I mean, it goes back to the beginning of time, but blood has always been synonymous with life, and it always is, right up with family and with the ties that kind of bind us together. When you talk about, things that are very close to your heart, you're talking about blood. You're talking about a blood debt, a blood feud, blood relations. Sunday, bloody Sunday, like that.
Blood is if you look it up in the dictionary, they just describe it as the red fluid that runs through your body carrying nutrients. You're just like, okay, I'm taking away toxins. And you just went, okay, I feel like I'm grammar school again. What's blood? What's blood, teacher?
I'll show you blood. Interrupt me again, and you'll see some blood. And that's true. I mean, blood is just a red fluid. And if you start to make it into sort of a scientific or clinical, definition, that you can go that way. But that's not what people mean when they're talking about blood.
Well, it has so many connotations, and it goes pretty deep into the human psyche when it's blood. I was reading up on how, I think it's in India, the word is hema, which is the equivalent of blood, and how they look at it. And the Greek is a form of hema, but it's where the derivative of the word, especially when you're doing medical terms, comes from, like, hematomas and
hematologist.
Mm-hmm.
Hemorrhoid.
Oh, lovely.
That's just to name a few.
Okay. But it's rather interesting because the what they believed back then, it's a very gut or old way of looking at blood. It's the life. Basically the life of the body is in the blood. That's the phrase. And then I think the Greeks were saying that the life of the body and the soul, they equated blood with soul.
Mm.
And then I think that it was also equated in both Hebrew and Greek that the soul is seated in the heart.
Mm.
So it is a very real extension of life. In the traditions of getting, how do I say this? I mean, you start reading up on this, and it just starts going into all kinds of blood ritual, how to atone for or appease a deity of some kind, either a god or a goddess or a like the nature forces, and they believe that using blood as a sacrifice would be the way to do things.
Well, it was a direct representation of the life force. Mm-hmm. And I think you may have mentioned already, but the Greeks also thought of the seat of intelligence of the body was in the heart, and that in essence, and we even now to this day, when you have something hit you, it hits you, and you can feel the blood draining from your face, the blood draining from your hands. It immediately affects you in that heart. Your heart, we have these wonderful sayings. Your heart drops. My heart fell out of my chest, and you feel a direct connection, the emotions. Now, of course, you can explain it in many different ways. Your blood pressure drops, etc. But the connection of you, the feeling you, the part of you which is connected to your spirit and to your emotions, and the way it's reflected immediately in your body and your blood, and the way your blood moves. Of course, it's quite obvious to ancient peoples and to us as well that when you lose blood, you lose life. It's incompatible with life to not have enough blood in your body.
Right.
And the sacrifice of blood, we have it all the way from the very most primitive peoples all the way up to the modern or to the more modern Christian rituals. The symbolism of blood plays all the way through. You find it. The heart, again, being sort of the seat of the soul, is also an Egyptian.
Right.
So the physical representation of blood and what it does for the body, and the spiritual connotations of blood, have become completely intertwined over tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years of ritual. And I don't think that it's incorrect. Yes, you can tease it all apart and talk about corpuscles and the various components of blood and everything it does for your body. These are all correct, just as you can tease apart the brain into its individual neurons and synapses. But there's a more visceral connection that is outside of this physical sort of analytical way of looking at blood, which really does tie blood to the soul, and every man has blood, so it's sort of like the soul of the everyman. The blood. Mm-hmm. Jeez, work that right. Last week we were talking about family, and family is called your blood. You're
right.
You're related to these folks by blood, by a physical relationship. And then you also have, sort of the people who become part of your family through the connections first of spirit, and then it becomes you have this concept of a blood brother, of becoming, even if you haven't, some sort of people have done these things over many thousands of years, having rituals of initiation which have to do with blood.
Yeah.
With
the exchange of blood.
Exchange of blood, or the sacrifice of blood, the shedding of blood.
No, it's the mingling of blood.
The commingling of blood.
The mingling of blood is to show the bond, that it's a blood bond.
A blood bond, exactly.
And that's a life bond.
There was also many, rites of passage that people have ritualized. When women would pass from girlhood into womanhood, they'd have their menses and they'd have blood, and the blood would show the transition. And then there were many other.
They had to beat the boys to get the blood out of them.
Yeah, you should beat boys at every opportunity, and getting some blood out of them is a good idea. But in fact, the whole idea. One of the mysteries, one of the ancient mysteries of womanhood is the fact that women will bleed and not die, because anyone else who would bleed that amount, or even less than that, would be severely wounded and probably would die. And so this grew up into a mystery, the mystery of the crone, the mystery of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. The triple goddess mystery is all around blood. It's all around this idea of
the cycle of how
cycle.
Is it, how is it that you can bleed and not die?
Not die.
That was one of the main reasons why a woman was considered the doorway into life.
Right. Again, when over many hundreds of thousands of years, the idea of being born, you're born in blood. You're born covered in blood. Now, people say that you see, Lifetime Channel when they have babies, and look, he's so cute. He just came out, just born. He's all cleaned up and happy. No, when anyone who's been a parent or has been present or has given birth to a child realizes there's a lot of messy blood. Blood is everywhere when you're giving birth to children. So we are all born in blood, and people get squeamish about it. We know people who faint at the sight of blood, but in fact,
like a stone,
like a stone. But in fact, I think it's because we've kind of sanitized our idea of what's life and what isn't life, and blood has become something which is to be sort of abhorred or at least shrunk from. But our ancestors, and you mentioned it earlier, blood was a daily occurrence. You would use blood in ritual. You would see blood all the time. You would be capturing and butchering your own animals, or you would be hunting for your food. You would see blood in nature. Nature red in tooth and claw is because blood, the exchange of blood, the exchange of life force, is how one animal receives nourishment from another.
And the interesting thing is, I know a lot of people choose to be vegan, but how do you get your vegetables from the earth unless they're planted and taken care of? It's through your blood, sweat, and tears. Will you be able to reap a harvest?
Yeah.
Life must be expended for life to continue.
Exactly. And so blood is central to all of those things. And when you talk about even if we talk about our physical bodies and things that we understand about them now, for a long time people say, well, the brain is the center of the control center of the body. Everything, basically the body is just an appendage for the brain. It's just a way for the brain to get around. But we now know, and this is not new research, but we now know that there are many quote unquote brains or centers of intelligence in the body. There's certainly the brain we're all familiar with that's between our ears, but there's a whole nervous system and ganglia that are part of the spinal cord. There's a whole parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
And then there's this whole idea of a quote unquote a second brain, the mesenteric brain, which has come into recent research as being sort of the place where we thought, well, you have this idea of a gut feeling. Well, in fact, there is a tremendous amount of thinking, quote unquote, thinking going on in our guts. The processing, the vagus nerve, which is a very primitive part of the nervous system. It's this very, very long. I believe it's the longest nerve in the body. It's something like 3 meters long or something like that. Comes directly out of your skull and wanders, and that's why it's called vagus, because this is the Latin word for vagrant or wanderer. It wanders all over the body. It connects the heart, the lungs, the mesentery, the gut, the kidneys and the liver and the spleen and all these organ systems in sort of a loose network where these things communicate to each other through this nervous system and through various neurotransmitters like serotonin and some other ones.
Right.
And in essence, make some decisions based on what's in your body, how you feel, what's attacking your systems, what food you're eating, what food you need. Those types of things where we say, I really feel like having a hamburger today. That's the vagus nerve conveying information from the mesenteric brain and getting it all the way up and knocking really hard on the door and saying, boom, 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 get us a hamburger now, damn it, or I'm going to do something terrible. But these kinds of impulses are less instinctive and more reasoned than we gave them credit for previously.
Right.
And then the blood itself, the movement of blood through the body is not. It is. People say, "Oh, the heart is just a pump and just dump, the dump, the dump, the dump." No, it is intimately connected with the other organs in the body, including via the vagus nerve. And there are many things, physiological things, and really reasoning or communication type messaging that's going on in between your organs without ever involving the brain. The brain gets informed later, hey, we decided something, you're going to go to Canada. But why? Shut up and go. Drive the car. Do things. Get us there. Okay. So the brain has, the cerebral cortex and the sort of higher functions of the brain are a much later development. The
right.
blood, the body talking to the body, and the primitive, quote unquote, the pons and the more primitive parts of the brain where emotions and feelings and other types of survival reactions take place are all tied into a system which is, we call it primitive, but I'm going to say original. That's something that our bodies, which develops first. First things that develop in your system are your enteric systems, your organ systems. Actually, I read something the other day that the very first thing that forms in the human fetus is the anus. So we're all kind of, original assholes when it comes.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, and you can see it in vestigial amounts in a lot of people. Wow, man, you really have one heck of a primitive development. But in fact, our enteric systems and the the original communication systems develop first. We almost develop as a recapitulation of how life developed. We develop in a sack of water, which is a fluid rather, which is almost identical to the chemical composition of the original seawater.
Right to the ocean.
Right to the ocean. We develop through stages where you look. And you look first like a single-celled organism, then you look like a multi-celled organism, then you look like a fish, then a tadpole. Some people never get past that tadpole stage. But in fact, the development of the eventual animal or the eventual human being looks very similar at the stages of embryo.
Right.
We kind of redevelop, we recapitulate 100 million years worth of evolution in 9 months, or in the first few months of development. And blood is one of the very first things that develop. That the very first thing that develops is a primitive, very primitive circulatory system. You start to hear a heartbeat.
Yeah, there will be a little heartbeat going.
Oh, very, very, very early it can be detected. So blood, blood is correctly been associated with life,
Right.
The Chinese, when they talk about qi, what's the color of qi? What's the color of qi? Color of qi is the color of blood.
Right. It's blood red.
It's blood red.
And it was always considered life. And if you go into energetics, they basically state that as creation was made, the rays of light, or rather, it was white light that came in, but the first ray is the red ray,
Mm.
and the second would be blue.
Hmm.
And then the third ray, I believe, is green. But it starts from the red, which is life thrusting in, which is just understanding that you must have that life there for it to even begin living. You know,
whose mythos is that? The light mythos.
Let me think. I'm gonna have to go into recall. I'm a little slow today, people.
I know, but we really both have been sick, and you were sick later than me, so.
Yeah, I will get back to you on that.
In any case, you know, the idea though that red is synonymous with life, and in many cultures, red is not just the color of life, but it's also the color of luck, of energy. When you talk about the energy points in the body, when you talk about Chinese medicine or chakras, and moving the energy around, the flows in the Chinese medicine, the qi flows often follow the pathways in the body, like the pathways of the veins, like the pathways of the nerves. And oftentimes when you're talking about blocked qi or a blocked flow, it's the energy flow, which is also in some ways synonymous with the blood flow through the body.
Right. Life flow, there are different traditions that mark pathways of energy flow through the body. And they break it down in different traditions. It's not all exactly the same. But it is fascinating in the fact that most people understand that red is life.
Mm.
And it's very, it's something that ties people together. I mean, it's a gut reaction when people see blood.
Mm.
Like people I know who do faint at blood. It's such a shock that's it, lights out. But to most people seeing blood, you understand that this is serious.
Yeah.
This is serious. And I'm laughing because whenever the boys were playing and something happened, it's like, okay, is there blood? And it's usually no. Okay, no problem.
No blood, it's okay.
It's okay. But the minute there's blood, you're like, okay, well, let me see.
Right.
Well, what are we talking? So, it's very primal. You just know that, okay, there's blood. I've got to do something. You don't want to lose blood. And it's something that children understand. It's like, no, you can't be losing blood. That's not good.
Mm.
No, we got to get something to stop that. Where's mommy? Or a Band-Aid. Here, I'll put a Band-Aid on it.
Right.
We stop losing blood. I mean, have you ever seen some kids' reactions, or some adult reactions, but some kids' reactions whenever they have a scrape and all they can do is cry because they don't want their blood to leave?
Right. Well, who does?
Well, I'm just saying, you talk it over later, but usually it's just tears, and then when you talk, it's like, I don't want my blood leaving me.
I don't want my blood. Sometimes you do want to have somebody's blood leave them, though. It's just a... in fact, though, to put a finer point on it, you don't have to teach children about the significance of their blood. They know it right away. It's something that we understand. It's hardwired into us. That color red instantly draws attention. You one of the colors that children can see almost immediately are contrast colors: white, black, red. High contrast colors like that, because they're important things. You want to be able to tell if it's light. You want to be able to tell if it's dark. You want to be able to tell if you're bleeding. It's true. If people dangle red in front of animals to excite them, but the color red is associated with life, with food, with danger, with serious life-threatening or life-affirming actions throughout all animal kingdom, and certainly up into us, because we had to survive as well in those same environments.
Right.
As you mentioned earlier about people who are vegetarians or vegans, but no matter what, you need to have a certain amount of proteins that they can be from animal proteins or from meat, because your body needs that. You need it either in a supplement, or you need it to take it in. You need you need proteins. In some cases, you need like truly red meat. And you'll get people who argue, no, you don't need those things. You can get them from supplements. But if you are put into a natural environment, one without all the processed foods and all the things that you're talking about, you will, left to their own devices, people will eat an omnivorous diet, including direct animal proteins. And blood is part of that, in any tissue. Your body is set up to not only to process it, but to require it. And certainly, if you want to argue about people, every other animal on the planet, except us, of course, needs blood. Blood isn't just a concept. It's truly something which nourishes. It affirms and allows life in the body, and it nourishes life when transferred from one body to another, ingested and digested. We've sanitized ourselves, and we've sanitized the blood out of our modern day lives. We've tried to remove it all, except in cop movies. But in fact, where we truly put down in an environment where we had to survive, the body would immediately, the mesenteric system would immediately say, "Let's go get us some, let's go gnaw on another animal here, and quick."
Well, the body knows what it needs,
yeah.
And it brings to mind the story of the person that was lost at sea for months and would eat by catching fish. And they discovered, this person was talking, saying, I would catch the fish and I would wind up eating it, but you would think you would just be eating the meaty parts. And the body started telling him, no, you need this part or that part, and you only find it in like the head of the fish, or part of the marrow of, or it's like parts of the fish you don't think of. But the body was telling this person, you need this right now.
Right.
So it was how this person had survived at sea, by listening, actually, and actually being pretty good at catching fish, I'd say.
Well, again, that's the other thing is when you're put in a situation where when it's your life that is crying out to live, your body wants to live, it will talk to you. Mm-hmm. You will get the message, do this now or you will die. There's the imperative there to live, and then what you need for life comes from that mesenteric system. And you know what my gut is telling me right now?
Oh, what?
It's time for a blood break. I mean, a commercial break. We'll go back to the studio, we'll have a little break, and we'll come back on the other side and talk more about blood.
is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the 4th largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Minette Lauren, author of Race for the Sun. Do you believe in guardian angels? Check out book 1 of my Soul Watcher series. It can be found on Amazon.com or anywhere fine books are sold. Go to www.minettelauren.com, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the 4th Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Let's get back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And you're back. And there will be blood.
Oh, please.
Well, tonight's topic, the first half hour we spent this evening talking about blood, and I think we'll go in a little bit different direction. We talked a little bit about how visceral and how important blood is, but blood, and we did mention this in the first half hour. Blood is how we determine our relationships. You have bloodlines, which over the years were used to kind of talk about sort of your pedigree, where you come from is your bloodline. And then people would oftentimes try to bring two families together with blood ties,
Right.
Marry my daughter and your son, and this was
bring the two families together.
Bring the two families together. And oftentimes both blood feuds as well as the settling of these feuds would be through these blood ties. You mentioned before we got on the air about how if you give an offense, or if you have this kind of a vendetta, a family war, if you will, it can start with one member of one family doing something, injuring or killing another member of another family, and then blood demands blood.
Right. No, it's true. It's a very primal response
Yeah.
Blood demands blood. There, it should be. It's an equal trade. It's going back to Hammurabi.
Mosaical law and the eye for an eye. People today would say, "Oh, that's so barbaric," but in truth, the foundation of many of our laws are laws of equity.
And it's interesting because the Hammurabi Code actually was put into place to civilize people. And most people don't understand. They know, well, that's barbaric. You're sitting there going, you don't understand. Unless you agree for one, one group will take more than one life from the other group. And this is the way they figured out that this will stop the conflict.
This is a great point. A life for a life sounds barbaric, but it used to be, you take one of ours and we'll put two of yours in the morgue. It was this idea of not only just getting even, but getting ahead again. If you kill one of ours, we'll kill two of yours, and it was escalation.
Yeah.
To the point where you had whole clans fighting whole other clans for centuries on end.
Yes, and no one can remember what the transgression was.
Exactly.
But that was the reason why the Hammurabi Code came up.
Right.
And the step taken to evolve that is the legal system that we've begun to develop in the Western world.
Yeah. The whole idea of saying that the debt was satisfied. That blood was drawn, and now blood has been drawn on the other side, and therefore we're now we're good. We don't have to continue. It also comes down to the same thing. Drawing blood was akin to starting a war or starting a fight. A fight didn't start until you drew blood, until it became serious.
It was serious once you drew blood against another person.
Right.
That was always considered serious.
Right.
And it just brings to mind some of the stories my grandfather would tell me about how in the Philippines, it was I don't even know how to explain it. It's like tribal, but there was a tradition that if you were going to fight, you had to put this red bandana on your forehead, and by tying that red bandana, you basically said you fought until blood is drawn, or death.
Right.
And that was the only thing that was going to stop it.
Right.
And so if people don't understand that there is a part of you that does this, that you have that kind of passion in yourself. Like the phrase "seeing red" is equated with the amount of anger that you can have, and without that being controlled, you will wind up killing someone. You may not mean to, but no, that kind of energy has got to be understood and disciplined, controlled, because you do have that within you. So when blood was drawn against a person, the people that love and care for that person immediately want blood.
The whole concept of vengeance was exactly that. And as you said, with the Hammurabic law, or with this idea of one for one, it was to try and settle these things down. But it wasn't. It still acknowledged the offense. Blood meant you needed to draw blood. You lost a hand, you had to lose an equivalent. The whole idea of equivalency respected the idea of the seriousness of the offense. Taking a life meant you were owed a life. Turn it around. When somebody would save your life, you would owe them, quote unquote, a life debt, or or a blood debt.
Right.
So this whole idea of life and blood and the exchange of blood and the value of blood, both the ties to your family, the blood ties to your family, and the fact that any offense or any injury to anyone that you consider your blood is like an injury or an offense to you, So,
physical body thing.
It's a physical body thing that has been used to organize people and societies for hundreds of thousands of years, and I think we ignore it at our peril.
Yes, not to acknowledge the fact that is part of your background. Without, of course, in modern society, we're reasonable people. We can think on our own, we can do. But I beg to differ. All you have to do is look at Facebook, and you want to see tribes?
Or unreasonable people? Yes, it's tribal. And
all that infighting is tribal.
Yeah. And it's us versus them. We have a veneer on top of the human psyche, this very, very thin layer, paper thin layer, where we say, well, it's okay and everything's good and we're all going to hug and kumbaya. And then right below it, scratch the surface, and we're back in blood versus blood. You see it instantly when people form up into in these gangs, and they're it's unfortunate because the people who join them almost as a self-defense mechanism. I don't have anything else. I need something around me. I need to have a tribe. I need to have a family. They bond to each other via ritual, blood ritual often, and then it's exactly like a blood family in the sense that without any Hammurabi laws, when one of the gang or quote unquote the family, one of our blood tie people is injured, that's enough to start a war. That's a turf war. That's a gang war.
And they've gone all the way back beyond Hammurabi at that point.
Oh yeah, no more. There isn't one for one. It's you do one.
We are going to destroy you.
We're going to destroy you, exactly. So one thing about blood is it cuts to the core. It cuts to the heart. It literally cuts to our life force, and it also reveals. It should reveal that we aren't as civilized or as as far removed from the primitive as we imagine we are.
You're not as sophisticated as you think you are.
As you think you are, and that's the great word there. The kind of operative word there is think. People put all these kind of sort of gentrified or dressed up conventions on top of this fairly primitive, reactive, emotional being, which is part of who we are. There is certainly a spiritual side to us. There's certainly a side to us which is eternal. But when you come here, in the physical, dreaming the common dream, you are, as you said, you have to master those passions, but you can't master them by ignoring them and pretending they don't exist. You have to embrace them and understand them, and know that they are going to be so powerful. They're part of they're your lifeblood. They're part of you that makes your body run. You can't just say, well, we don't have those nasty feelings. No, we do, and we have to understand that they're right there, right at the core.
Well, it's understanding what that is, and there's a lot of people that want to, accuse more of the hormonal stuff. It's testosterone. That's what does it. That's why we have all the violence in the world. That's BS, girls. That's so BS. It's not funny. Because there's a lot of, you want to see cat fighting, again, go to any of the social media. Yeah. And I don't see peace and love.
Right.
And the harmony that you want to share. It's like, no. Master yourselves first. Then you have something to say.
and I think it's a human thing. People like to break it down into the us versus them, whether it's men versus women, or yeah, exactly.
That is my point. Whenever you start breaking it down into us and them, you're breaking yourself up into sides and forming walls. You will have nothing but conflict. Because you're concentrating on what is different instead of understanding your humanity and what this other person is saying and how they're saying it. No, you immediately go into, well, that's not how I say things. That's not how I understand it.
Right.
Oh, I see. So you have the vast understanding for humanity. Meh.
Meh. Well, but let's look at it though from this point of view. If we one of the things which is good about blood, and you'll find folks who have sort of externalized this whole thing, say we all have the same blood. All of our blood is as red as anyone else's blood, and
we all bleed red.
We all bleed red, and the divisions of gender and race and politics and country and all this stuff are very small, almost artificial. They're not necessarily artificial, but they're certainly blown up large to create the walls and create the divisions. But at the level of blood, we're the same. There's no, it's trite to say it, but there's no way to tell if you go to a blood bank whether the blood that you're receiving came from somebody who you don't agree with politically, or who's a woman or a man or whatever.
Right.
I mean, the blood is blood is blood. Yes, there's, okay. I can hear them out there. But there's blood types. Yes, okay, thanks. But the point of the idea of blood is that it's human at a level which is indistinguishable of these other sort of petty differences that we put on each other. Sure, there's histocompatibility. Sure, there's blood types. Thank you very much, Mr. Scientist. But let's get the larger point here. Aside from these kinds of incompatibilities at a cell-to-cell level because of these types of interactions, blood of one type doesn't mix well with blood of another type. It has nothing to do with politics or gender or color or any of that stuff.
That's true.
So, blood is life. Blood is human. Blood is part of our common humanity, and it's also part of our connectivity one to another. We learn other distinctions afterwards, but right away we understand that we're related to people. This wonderful show, I won't name it directly, but basically they're people who have been adopted and have been raised by their adoptive parents, and then have this kind of desire to find out where they came from. Their desire is really, can be literally stated as who is like me, who is my blood, who am I related to? And even though the people who they're part, they acknowledge, these are my family, these are my parents, they raised me from, I don't remember anybody else feeding me or taking care of me or doing all those things. They're my parents, but they're not my blood.
Right.
Parents, all the things that we consider part of the blood, raising children and feeding them and disciplining them and loving them and doing all those things, those are all great things, but there's a piece of us we have to acknowledge which says that our blood, our true relationship, you are looking, and we share something at a genetic level, is a connection which goes so deep. When these folks are reunited, it's incredibly emotional to watch. If you have a heart in your body, you're like, your tears streaming down your eyes, because they look at each other after being separated maybe their whole lives, 20, 30 years, and like, and there's this moment, this instantaneous reaction of mother to child who've been separated for, who knows, their whole lives. Decades. And it's within 3 seconds there's a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hugging and crying on each other as though they've not only known each other their whole lives, but they've missed each other their whole lives.
Mm-hmm. You can see the recognition in the eyes.
Mm.
You know, all they have to do is set eyes on each other, and they go, "I know you.
I know you."
And when they come together, it's a heart-to-heart connection, because the body understands. A number of them had said, you know, it's nice to be able to look at someone and say, "Hey, I know where those eyebrows came from," or "I know where that nose came from," or "Hey, wait a minute, you have the same habit I have of raising my hands, or the shape of you know, your legs, or your shape in general." There it is.
There it is. But I think those are externalizations of the true heart-to-heart, blood-to-blood. I think this is when you're talking about the vagus nerve, the primitive nervous system, the mesenteric system. There's a gut-brain connection. There's a body-to-body connection there, which is connection on the physical plane, you know. And there are connections at the spiritual. There's your whole spirit family, if you will, which may have nothing to do with the physical family, and you can recognize people that way too. But when you're here, and the two bodies, which are related by blood, are separated, there's a wound. And when these two bodies, which are related by blood, are brought back together, there's an instant affinity and a healing that begins almost immediately. They all say, "I feel so much better. I feel as though a piece of me that was missing has come back."
And that is exactly the overall feeling that they have. If there's something in my heart that's missing, I need that connection again. You know, can I find that connection? It doesn't mean that they weren't loved.
No. In many cases, they have incredible affection and affinity for their adoptive families.
Yes, and they consider them family. But there's a part of you that understands at a very visceral level that you came from somewhere. And people are like, "I just want to know where I came from."
Right.
So where I came from is, what doorway did I come through? Who is she?
Yes.
You know, when you realize you came through someone, that there is this internal solidity or bond. You know, it cannot be broken. Because you did come into the world, and you didn't come, you know, by stork.
Most of them didn't. Yeah. Some, I think, came by FedEx.
The funny little robot that was climbing stairs and delivering boxes. Yeah. But when you understand that entering into this world is through someone. Most of us want to see and feel who that is.
Right.
Because that was the doorway of love for you. Regardless of the circumstances. You know, you were allowed to enter the world through her.
Right.
And one of the people who were adopted had said, you know, "Thank you for giving me a chance to live."
Yes.
It's so precious a gift. And when that child is taken away, there's this terrible hole.
There's a true wound there at the body level. No matter how much sense it makes for and many times these the women who give up these children are in terrible conditions. Either they're very, very young, or there's no way they could support these kids. But yet the body doesn't care. The blood doesn't care.
Yeah, it doesn't care.
It doesn't care about all the reasoning, all the head reasons for doing something. And there's a conflict. There's a war which goes on, blood versus brain. The brain is saying, you did the right thing, you did the right thing, you did the right thing. And the blood's going, no, I want this connection back.
Right.
Sometimes,
Right.
unfortunately, these folks, the other thing you see is, unfortunately, these folks will learn that their birth parent has passed on. They've been searching for them, and they're not only are they not available to meet with them, there's no way they're ever going to meet with them because they've passed on, and they feel that wound as though they were there the moment they died.
Right.
That connection at the physical level carries on into a grieving at the non-physical level. Even if you've never, quote unquote, mentally met them, you met them at the moment of your birth when you were brought into this world.
You were carried by.
Or carried by.
You were carried by this being who nurtured you all the way through.
Right.
There is a connection there that you cannot.
Oh, and I remember the science part where they said that you are actually. There was always the idea that the placental barrier was a barrier where one blood didn't mix with the other, but they figured out that there are many different cells which do cross. So you actually do share blood.
Yes.
At a cellular level, not at a full blood level, but you do share blood, besides genetics, with that child that's being carried within.
Mm-hmm. And it's also to remind oneself, too, that you are part of this vast family of humanity. For a reason. For a reason. If you can embrace your humanity down here with all its lumps and bumps, bruises, the good, the bad, the ugly, I think we talked about that.
The ugly, yes.
You can embrace that entire family. And it's pretty impossible for a lot of people, okay? But what we can do is take a step and embrace your soul and your spirit. And through that, the strength and the grace comes through to be able to accept your own humanity. Because through accepting your own humanity, you can begin to really learn how to love.
And on that note...
Yes. Yes. Well, we have reached the end of our show. And
you've run out of blood.
And this is the soul of the Everyman. And I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael, and keep all the blood within your body.